Let's bring in former Special Operations Director of the DEA, Derek Maltz, to get his reaction to, again, this breaking news about this threat. Thank you. Always good to see you. Thank you for joining us here on Special Report. So I want to get to the breaking news, but also I want to get your reaction to that vote. Again, we just heard Johnson, Mayorkas being impeached last night. Again, second time's a charm. It happened. But here's a big question. What now?
So I'm very pleased that at least we got the positive vote of impeachment. I testified many months ago at one of these hearings with my friend Jason Jones, former captain of the Department of Public Safety in Texas. And it was embarrassing because it was at that hearing that the ranking member made numerous comments how this was like a waste of his time and it was nothing more than a MAGA extremist movement. And that basically he's sick and tired of hearing about the Southwest border Groundhog Day. Well, I'm glad to see at least we got a positive vote. Unfortunately, it's a step in the right direction, but now the Senate would have to approve it. And I have no confidence because of the politics, the overwhelming confidence. But all you have to do is look at the breaking news around the country and the multiple threats that are impacting cities throughout this country, because we have a wide open border.
Exactly.
And soft on crime policies. The bad guys are taking total advantage of it.
Yeah, they are. Go ahead, Tara. Yes.
Yeah, Derek, when this vote for the House, it passed in the House, but where is it going to go in the Senate? Is the Senate going to pass it, or is it kind of dead on arrival?
I mean, again, you would hope that they're trying to do the job on behalf of the American people. And you could see from a mile away that the guy's lying to every American. He committed perjury by saying he's got operational control of the border. Are you kidding me? Just watch some of the videos that everyone's circulating on social media about what's actually happening at the border. Look at the massive surge of all these unknowns coming into the country. As a matter of fact, the NYPD commissioner just had a very good statement that I will take from him with ghost criminals. That's what they are. They're ghost criminals because they're coming into this country at record levels. We don't know who they are. Yeah. And the Secretary of Homeland Security's primary job is to keep Americans safe. So I don't know what the Senate will do. I know what the instinct is telling me, that they'll just kind of blow over it and, it'll be a political, back and forth bantering. But meanwhile, the American public's suffering.
Yeah, I want to go to the border in just a moment and specifically back to New York. But again, going back to this breaking news happening today that we want to make sure that we discuss, and that is about this foreign threat. Apparently, Russia is being mentioned. What do you know about this? And frankly, how concerned should we be given, here you have Tara back in Israel again after in October, Israel just experienced its worst attack since the Holocaust. As you know, Derek, we have this disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal where American service members were killed. You've had, and Tara, correct me if I'm wrong, 170 attacks on U.S. service members overseas, and Ukraine being invaded by Russia. So things have gone downhill pretty fast since Biden's been in office, I'd say.
Right. And every American's going to be impacted. It doesn't mean anything if you're a Republican, Democrat, independent. Right now, it's survival. So I'm not at all surprised about this threat. My instinct would be it has something to do with a cyber attack. But let's look at the other breaking news. We have a shooter at the Kansas City Chiefs parade. We have 3 officers in Washington, D.C. that was shot. We have people in the subway being shot. And so, it's really every day is a new story. I was on some news networks last night talking about the new threats, these Venezuelan gangs that are all over the city, stealing pocketbooks, stealing iPhones, and dragging, a 52-year-old woman on the ground to steal the pocketbook. It's absolute disarray, and everybody's at risk. That's the big issue. So why is this so difficult? And I don't know, like I said, specifically the current threat. Hopefully they will declassify it and we'll hear more about it. But there's so many threats, it's hard to keep up with the threat streams.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and Derek, speaking of that breaking news, it's now confirmed 1 is dead, 9 are hurt in that shooting after the Chiefs Super Bowl parade. Can you give us any context on what you've heard about that?
Well, I've heard very little. I've been in meetings all day and other stuff, but I would say that there's a lot of people in this country that have severe mental illness. The depression and anxiety is off the charts. People can't afford to feed their families. There's all types of anxiety. And unfortunately, a lot of these people are also turning to illicit drugs to medicate themselves.
Yes.
And that's causing, massive deaths. I mean, remember, the current administration's legacy is 300,000 dead Americans just from drugs, right? More than that. And so we have, historic amounts of these things happening, and it's hard to really keep up with it. But I would say, let's make something really clear, that the bad guys are always going to take advantage of vulnerabilities and weaknesses. And right now, we couldn't be any weaker. Our president cannot even put together a sentence. Right. Everybody's watching this, but they're in denial. Like anybody could see, it's incoherent, his speech. And even the independent investigator has said that he's too senile, whatever the words were, that he can't, possibly stand trial. He made some mistakes. He had a bad memory. Why would we want anybody to run America in the most complex time in the world's history, in my view, that can't even put together a sentence? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. And you're referring to, for our audience that may or may not be familiar with that, Robert Hur, who's the special counsel who's been investigating Biden. This is all based on a report which Republicans are now asking for transparency. They want documentation of this because he said Biden has a poor memory. And clearly, anybody watching, going to your point, Derek, is able to see that. But you're going to that mental illness issue, and on the screen we were showing a number of mass shooters. Again, we don't know who is responsible for this shooting at the Chiefs parade, and our prayers go out to those affected. Again, 1 confirmed dead, but recently there was a shooting, Tara, as you know, that took place in Houston at Joel Osteen's church. And the mainstream media didn't want to come out and say it, but we did. It was a transgender who was responsible for that. And this is not the first time. So we're going to continue to monitor that situation. Derek, thank you so much for joining us and all that you do, for giving a voice to the voiceless and pressing this issue. And Tara, stick around. We still have a lot more to discuss coming up after the break. And again, we're going to be monitoring this news. Again, if you're just tuning in, 1 person confirmed dead. This is at a Kansas City Chiefs parade. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl over the Sunday. This is tragic news. We're going to stay on top of that, but we still have a lot more coming your way, including a sneak peek on a positive note of a new film brought to you by Angel Studios. You know them. They brought you The Sound of Freedom, right? They brought you The Chosen.